morning, ladies and gentlemen. From the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard. For those joining us in Bangkok, the flight is 131, this morning through to Paro. We are currently just climbing out of 17,000 for 19,000 feet. You can see Everest as well. Everest would be the highest mountain, standing at 850 meters or 29,035 feet above mean sea level.
The world's highest altitude cheeses are made in the Himalayas, and some of them are still produced by nomadic tribes and predate the great benchmarks of Europe. I've travelled to the isolated Buddhist kingdom of Bhutan to see how these cheeses are made and learn how they're linked to this country's cultural heritage. Known as the land of the Thunder Dragon, this small remote country lies between Nepal, Tibet, China and India. Steep mountains and thick forest, coupled with strict controls over visitor numbers, have enabled Bhutan to preserve a spectacular natural environment and an all-pervading Buddhist culture for centuries. With a small population of just 650,000 people, it's only recently begun the process of modernisation. And the government's careful, holistic approach is mindful that gross national happiness is as important as industrial development. More than 70% of the country has been set aside as natural forest. The sale of tobacco and plastic bags are banned, and national dress is worn during working hours. TV and cell phones only arrived in 1999, and it must be one of the few countries in the world where traditional cheesemaking hasn't been influenced by the demands of the mass modern market. After a dramatic landing and 14 hours of travelling up and down endless winding mountain roads with sheer drops on either side, I finally arrived in the Bumtang region in the centre of the country. With altitudes of between 2,500 and 4,000 metres, its four valleys are home to prominent Buddhist temples and monasteries known as dzongs. But the main reason I've come here is to catch up with an old acquaintance. My friend Patrick has offered to show me around this picturesque region, which is one of the prettiest and most productive agricultural areas of Bhutan. Tell me, what are you doing in this part of the world?
Well, I'm working here. I was invited to come work here about 2.5 years ago by a friend of mine, former coworker, and I really jumped at the chance. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to see, one of the last undiscovered places in the world.
And how do you see cheese getting into that?
Cheese is a foundation of the cuisine. Chilies, they get all the credit, but they go, perfectly well with cheese, dairy, butters and everything. Fresh, beautiful farm butter is used quite often. And the most, the national dish is chilies and cheese. And I think that the way that people love cheese and butter here, I can see it going back quite a long time.
Yeah. Our first stop was to visit the town's cooperative dairy, where each day they process just 500 litres of cow's milk into cheese.
Yeah, small little cooperative. How are you?
How do you do?
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
Whoa, look at this. Stone floor, cream separator.
Yes, that's for separating the cream.
Yeah. Whilst very basic by Western standards, the few pieces of shiny new equipment found here are a sure sign that things are going to change in Bhutan. Each morning, half a dozen local farms deliver fresh raw milk to the front door in churns. Traditional Bhutanese cheese is made from skim milk, and the first job at the dairy is to separate the cream from the fresh milk using a small separator. The cream is then placed into an electric stainless steel churn to make butter, whilst the skim milk is left overnight to sour. The following morning, it's gently heated until fluffy, delicate curds rise to the surface. And after a hygienic hand washing, it was time to make my first Bhutanese cheese.
Yeah, just packed by hand.
That's it.
This is what we use for the Amadi.
It's sweet and sour.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
It does. It's a nice combination.
Sweet and sour.
Yeah.
A little bit, almost like mossy, would you call it?
Yeah, I can see that.
Back in his modern hotel kitchen, Patrick and his assistant chef Sherub showed me how to make Amadi, a very popular dish of chilies and cheese that is considered to be the taste of Bhutan.
And you want to brown the onion? No, not even that, just straight in, okay, yeah.
Yeah, straight in tomato.
Tomato, okay.
And right now it is finished.
Are you sure you've got enough chilies there?
Yeah.
That's almost maybe not enough, but we'll go. We'll try.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Look at that colour. Beautiful.
And some salt.
Some salt, okay.
1 cup of water is added, and then handfuls of freshly crumbled local cheese are sprinkled in.
Put some juice.
It smells beautifully clean and buttery. Really, really fresh.
It's almost done.
That's really simple. So
Yes.
simple.
To accompany our Amadi, Sherub has made some small pancakes using a mixture of local buckwheat flour, eggs, and water.
There you go. There you go. That's good.
Look at that.
Extra chilies, of course.
And so you'll try a little bit of this?
Yes.
Yes.
It's really sweet.
Sure.
And you get that lovely texture of the pancake. Which really breaks down the chili.
Sure.
And this finishes with just a little hint of fire.
It's very hot.
After watching this simple process, I was very keen to find out how traditional cheese was made without modern cream separators and butter churns. And Patrick knew just the right place to visit.
Well, after visiting one of the biggest of all the dairies in Bhutan, I can't wait to see what a small farm dairy looks like. And this place apparently has got just 1 cow.
All hand milking, done every morning. That's the start of our cheese and butter.
I don't think we're going to get much milk here. I'll tell you what, there's a calf over here. If you bring this over, she may give a bit more. Because the funny thing about these cows is that when the calf's present, they get fooled into giving their milk. But when a human's milking them, they're really reluctant to let it down.
Wow.
There she goes.
There we go.
She's getting some.
Yeah.
Butter is still made by hand in many Bhutanese homes and patted into a ball shape for storing. A tiny bit is smeared on the home to keep surrounding spirits happy and ward off any evil intentions. Cheesemaking begins in the kitchen with a cauldron full of buttermilk and a wood-heated stove. The skim milk is slowly heated and gently stirred until the curds begin to float to the surface and form a solid mass. The hot whey is drained off and the curds are carefully formed into balls of fresh cheese. The Bhutanese are incredibly hospitable, and it was no surprise we found ourselves invited to stay for lunch.
So this is the traditional buttermilk tea of the region. It's made from the leftover whey with a little bit of butter added, Patrick, is that right?
Yeah.
Very buttery. Very
Very
rich.
buttery, yeah.
I reckon it'd be great in the
Bit of
middle of
salt.
snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buckwheat is a traditional food in Bhutan, and I was intrigued to see how an old wooden press was used to make noodles called puta, and a local dish of hand-rolled momos stuffed with cabbage, onion, chilies and cheese.
Here we get some noodles, some jambali noodles.
What are these?
These are momos.
Momo. And what's this?
This is called puta. It's a buckwheat noodle, which they make in this area of Bhutan, in Bhutan.
Would you like some of this? So these look sort of Chinese.
Yeah, I think they originally have like a Tibetan origin, but I think what makes these special, they have, the filling is with cheese. Yeah, so I've never really seen that before.
So how do you make them?
Basically, we make a filling with, used minced cabbage, minced onion. She used a bit of green chili, the beautiful fresh cheese, a really fair amount of butter. Kind of mix that all together with the hands, nice. Made a really simple dough, rolled out into little circles, folded up into these little purses, and then steamed. Yeah, simply steamed. So yeah, they're delicious. I love them. I think what really makes them unique, these, is being cheese momos, which I haven't heard of anywhere else. So
Oh, really good.
yeah, they're great. I love
Really
them.
good. Rich and buttery.
All that nice butter, a little bit of chili. Yeah, they're
Great
delicious.
texture of the momo around the outside.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're great.
And the chili just finishes it off. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Bhutan is definitely not renowned for its cuisine, but butter making is intricately linked to life in the monasteries.
I've travelled to one of the holiest places in Bhutan. It's a 7th century monastery, and the reason I'm here is to light a butter lamp. Butter forms a fundamental link between the farms and Buddhism. And the reason the butter lamp is lit is to guide the soul after a person has died for 49 days until it reaches Purgu.
Buddhism was originally introduced to Bhutan through Tibet in the 7th century by Guru Rinpoche, and today its influence is such an integral part of the life here that it must be one of the most blessed places in the entire world. After visiting the temple and listening to the mesmerizing chants of the monks, there was a surreal sense of spiritual calm in the butter lamp room. As we lit the candles and the monk quietly chanted his mantras, I found myself wondering about the many souls these tiny flickering lights might be guiding.
Some of the most interesting cheeses in Bhutan are made from yak's milk, but they can be really hard to find because yaks generally live above 4,000 metres high in the mountains, where they're herded by nomadic farmers. I've travelled to the Shinka Valley to see if I can track some down. The roads run out, and from here it's a long walk.
Yaks provide an essential source of protein and nutrients in the isolated mountain regions of Bhutan. Cows could not survive in this environment, but a thick, hairy coat and a unique compound in yak's blood enables them to thrive in high altitudes, where they happily graze on the sparse natural plants and herbs growing on the alpine slopes.
The hair on this yak is really thick and really soft, and there's an interesting Buddhist story behind it. The origin of this hair began a long, long time ago because the yak was once the friend of the buffalo. And they were low altitude animals who loved rock salt. And so they decided one day that the yak would go into the hills to look for the rock salt. But he thought he'd be a little cold. So he borrowed some of the buffalo's hair to climb up to the mountains. And there he found the rock salt and never went down again. And that's also the reason why you'll always find buffalo looking up and yaks looking down. I've got to tell you, they're not the world's most friendly beasts. They're big, sharp horns down there, and I don't want to actually find out how sharp they are. Yes, darling, I know. Go eat your tea.
Female yaks are known as dree in Bhutan, and during the peak summer months, they produce a few litres of exceptionally rich milk every day. Nothing can afford to be wasted in the mountains, and it can take several days to collect enough of the precious milk to make butter. As a result, milk is traditionally slightly sour when it's churned into butter, and then heated to make fresh cheese and a warm, nourishing tea.
This is yak's milk, buttermilk tea. Very, very special. You only ever find it here, high in the Himalayas. It's lovely and sweet. A little bit like condensed milk. It's very nice.
After the milk has been churned for at least an hour, the cream turns to butter and floats to the top of the churn.
So this is the next step, to drain off the buttermilk below the butter into this big pot here, and that's what's going to be used for making the cheese.
The fresh butter is then removed by hand and moulded in the traditional manner.
There's a beautiful perfume coming off that lovely, sweet, milky smell. So the next step in this process is to fill this lovely cauldron up with buttermilk and bring it slowly up to a temperature just below blood heat. And as it's heated, she's going to gently stir it so the curds form. And one of the interesting things about this particular cheese is that no coagulant is added. Most cheese has added rennet, but this cheese is really just a question of heating the milk solids until they rise to the surface. Just start to see the curds forming together and start to knit into one big lump.
Once ready, she lifts the heavy cauldron with her bare hands and drains the hot whey through an ingenious combination of twigs, leaving only the fresh white curds.
It's still warm. Very creamy, very crumbly, a little bit like ricotta, and a little bit sour at the same time, and quite chewy, surprisingly, despite being so crumbly. You know what it really needs? It needs to be warmed up, melted a little bit, add some chilli, and I'd be in Bhutanese paradise.
This family also make a rare hard brown smoked cheese dried on yak hair, known as chogo, and another variety made from full cream milk called muchu. Before the arrival of Buddhism from Tibet, the local religious beliefs were based around the worship of animal deities. The rituals in those days were directed against the eradication of demons and evil spirits, and the masks and costumes used today have evolved from those times. Symbolic costume and mask dances are regularly performed at religious festivals across the kingdom, and to mark our visit, I was honoured with a special dance performed by local monks. The hotel I'm staying in at Bumtang is set on the royal grounds of the Second King's Palace. The royal family moved out years ago, but the soldiers are still sent to collect fruit from the Queen's special pear trees growing in the orchard, and this beautiful place is also used to practice a Bhutanese obsession.
The national game in Bhutan is archery, so I can't wait to give it a go whilst I'm here. One thing though, if you don't get it right, they taunt you. I just see an arrow go by.
The archers wear national dress and shoot at very small wooden targets placed 140 metres apart. And most villages boast their own archery range. The distance is so great that some teammates need to stand dangerously close to the target to shout back on how good the shot was. And then they dance and chant, which inevitably leads to ritual howls from the rival team members. It really looked like a lot of fun, so I asked our guides if I could join their team in a competition. After much toing and throwing of arrows, I soon realised it was a lot more skilled than it looked. But at least I was able to support my team's winning score with one fluke shot. The magnificent Tiger's Nest is one of the country's most sacred monasteries and is built on the side of a sheer cliff high above the Paro Valley. It's a must-visit destination. And my companion on this special trek was Kempo, a very learned friend and author who kindly explained how this spectacular place came to be so important. According to legend, the monastery was built after the site was visited by Guru Rinpoche riding a tigress. Sometimes known as the second Buddha, he is said to have meditated in a natural cave beneath the monastery for at least 3 months before pacifying the local evil spirits and converting the Bhutanese to Buddhism. Ever since, this extraordinary place has been known as the Tiger's Nest and attracts thousands of pilgrims each year. When we returned from our trek to the valley below, I asked Kempo to explain the importance of butter candles.
So butter, actually why butter is very important. Dri butter is not yak butter. So yak is a male, Dri is a female. So Dri butter, because this is very precious, because when yak graze the grass, so filtering already is filtering very much and becoming milk. And that milk, also the essence of the milk is butter. So you need a lot of effort to get that butter. So that is very important part because very precious, very rare to get Dri butters to offer.
You might be watching this show and thinking that the Bhutanese live a hard and difficult life. But cut off from the modern world, they seem to live deeply spiritual, happy lives in harmony with nature and each other. Stopping off in one small village, I witnessed a man cut down his corn and feed his family. I watched a daughter weave tapestry and a whole family at work on their evening meal. Surrounded by the landscape of the magnificent Himalayas, perhaps Bhutan is the perfect place to contemplate the true nature of happiness.
Well, this really has been an amazing adventure. The countryside of Bhutan is absolutely beautiful. The mountains are literally breathtaking. The cheeses have proved to be very, very interesting, but ultimately, I think what I'll take away from this journey is the sense of spiritualism and the people. It's really very special, and I'm coming back.
Cheese
Slices!
Bhutan measures its economy on gross national happiness. And I'd like to think this plant might be one reason why.
Yeah!